Welcome to RUMC Connections. So welcome to RUMC Connections. My name is Meredith Gaskins, and I'm joined today by peer advocate of RUMC's Behavioral Health Mobile Crisis Team, David Ferrer, and recovery peer advocate for the South Shore Safety Net Program, Anthony Arcuri. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So through RUMC Connections, you'll meet the fantastic doctors, nurses, and medical professionals that make our hospital thrive. We'll provide you useful information about the latest medical news, your own health, and hopefully get you answers to some of your own health-related questions. So, RUMC Connections, this podcast, we will highlight the people and programs that make a difference at Richmond University Medical Center and the Staten Island community. We are diving into two vital programs today that are behavioral health services, the Mobile Crisis Outreach and South Shore Safety Net programs. They both offer life-saving support and long-term empowerment for Staten Island's youth and young adults. So joining me today, as I mentioned, are two extraordinary guests with personal journeys that deeply inform the work that they do. So first, we have David Ferrer, the peer advocate of RUMC's Behavioral Health Mobile Crisis Team. After a successful 37-year career in New York City's financial district, David retired in 2014 to care for his ailing mother full-time. He's been in recovery from alcohol addiction since 1991, and after his mother's passing, he felt called to give back. So in 2024, he earned his Certified Recovery Peer Advocate credential and joined RUMC. As part of the Mobile Crisis Team, the only one of its kind on Staten Island, David performs wellness checks and provides recovery support to individuals transitioning out of emergency psychiatric care. Also with us is Anthony Arcuri, recovery peer advocate for South Shore Safety Net program. After making a major career change shift, Anthony joined RUMC in 2022 following his certification through the College of Staten Island's continuing education program. As a married father of two young children, he was especially drawn to the opportunity to support adolescents navigating the often challenging transition into adulthood. In his role, he helps youth set and achieve meaningful goals while steering them away from the mistakes he's seen and experienced. So for Anthony, this isn't a job. It's the most rewarding work he's ever done. And together, David and Anthony bring heart, experience, and real-world insight into their roles, offering connection, mentorship, and hope to those who need it most. So let's get into it. How do programs like Mobile Crisis Outreach and Safety Net, create pathways for stability, healing, and independence for Staten Island's youth?
Well, from the mobile outlook, we're really a first responder.
Yeah.
Is really what it is. It's usually someone coming out of the psych ER and being sent home. And what we try to do is do a wellness check to see how they're doing.
Okay.
And if they're scheduled to make an appointment with their therapist or the psychiatrist or program, which some of them are in safety net and things of that nature, where they may go depending on their age.
Okay.
And we deal with all age groups.
Yeah.
So
What's your typical range? Do you have one?
it goes from, I've seen 6 to 85.
Wow. Okay.
So it depends on when people. Yeah, it's mid-range most of the times. It's 20s and 40s and 30s, but it's you can go anywhere.
Okay. Very cool.
The Safety Net program, the name speaks for itself. We really are a safety net for adolescents age 16 to 24. We provide, transitional support, with education, employment, vocational skills, anything like that. We have adolescents coming from all different backgrounds. Some of them are, really looking for sort of just a role model or somebody to lean on, to help them with whatever goals they might want to achieve. We let them sort of create their goals and we work together with them, try as best we can to support them in whatever they need. We can help them obtain documentations. Sometimes we have adolescents come in and, they have no documentation. They, their home situation, might have been rough and, they really, they just need somebody to point them in the right direction. Like, they don't know, where to go to find these things, so we can help them there. We also deal with a lot of homeless youth
Okay.
coming from the Project Hospitality, the transitional independent living facilities and things like that. So we're there to really help them, become that independent adult, that they're, looking to become at some point.
Okay. So they both sound like very unique, important, critical programs for the community for sure. For listeners who might be unfamiliar, how does mobile crisis outreach operate within the community?
Actually, we get referrals, and most of our stuff comes from the
From the
Psych
psych
ER,
okay.
and it's people being released back into the community, and we go out on a daily basis. We have 2 cars that go out. There's 3 shifts, actually 2 that actually go out. One is an overnight shift that goes
Wow.
out if it's an emergency.
It's 24/7.
It's 24/7, and we go out and we actually ring doorbells and enter people's homes, and we see how they're doing. And at first I thought it was a relatively scary situation, but it actually is a very humbling and rewarding situation when you go into a home and you try to gauge how they're doing.
And with Safety Net, how does the South Shore branch differ from the broader program?
So you have the overall safety net program, and then branched out from that, you have Youth Achieving Independence. That is a program for adolescents with an Axis 1 diagnosis. They have to have at least that in order to be in the program. With the South Shore safety net portion of it, that's for adolescents at risk of substance abuse, and that could be a very broad, definition for it. They don't have to be an active, user. They could just be somebody who lives in a neighborhood where it's more prevalent, or going to school where it might be happening. Maybe a family member might be using or something like that. So there's it's a broad spectrum of people that we can help out in that regard there.
Okay.
And that's sort of like where I come in as the peer advocate.
Gotcha.
Is for specifically the South Shore safety net portion.
Okay. Does that mean South Shore of Staten Island or?
I believe it originally started on the South Shore, was where they were located.
Yeah.
It was at Mount Loretto
Okay.
over there. And when they wrote the grant and wrote the name, that's what they went with. And then when Staten Island Mental Health got absorbed into the RUMC network, then they moved to the South Avenue office. But
Okay.
they kept the name.
So these services are available islands wide.
Yes,
Okay.
North Shore, South Shore, absolutely.
Wonderful. So, okay, I know both programs do serve the youth. Can you explain maybe the age ranges, the eligibility, the overall goals? How do referrals typically come in?
For us, we get a lot of referrals from doctors like the therapists and psychiatrists. We also get a lot of referrals from schools.
Okay.
A lot of student age adolescents come in, looking for just extra support. We deal with certain programs, like a lot with South Richmond High School, their day treatment program. I personally go into Port Richmond High School with their District 75 program. And these are students that might need a little extra support. They're kind of behind on developing life skills and things like that.
Okay.
But yeah, we have so many referrals coming in.
Wow.
We've had people also that would contact us directly. They contact my supervisor, Basilio Allen. We could write out a referral in that way.
Okay. How many people are part of the Safety Net team?
9 of us now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're growing.
Wow. And it's, sounds like you serve such a large portion of the community.
We do, yeah. The caseloads just keep growing and growing, and
Yeah.
we keep bringing on more adolescents because, we want to be able to support them as best we can. So that's why we've brought on more life coaches and more support. We're trying to expand as much as we can, to reach as many as we can.
Okay. How quickly can the team respond to a crisis? And, what does the response look like on the ground?
Well, from our standpoint, there's a 988 number which acts a lot like 911
Okay.
for mental health. And when we do get a request for a 988 call, we have to respond within 2 hours. On a referral, which we get referrals from everybody on Staten Island,
Yeah.
family members, doctors, programs, the therapists, and a lot of times it's the patient has either missed an appointment or they want to do a wellness check and see how they're doing. Those are within 48 hours.
Okay.
Okay, we try any referrals that come in are within 48 hours. But of course, if we get a referral that's dictating that the person is really on edge, and we'll try to go
Make it a
little
priority.
quicker than
Yeah.
48. But for the most part, it's the 988 is the critical one that has to be done within 2 hours,
Okay.
and the other ones
Do you get similar crisis type scenarios or?
No, not that we have to like respond out in the field. I mean,
Okay.
we do work out in the field with
Yeah.
adolescents, go with them to appointments and things
Mhm.
like that, just as extra support. But we're not really like a immediate response
Gotcha.
sort of.
How do you ensure the safety of both the clients and the team during these home or community visits? I can imagine it could be.
From a mobile standpoint, I'm grateful that we go out as a team.
Okay.
There's usually 3 to 4 of us out on the road. So when we get to a person's house, sometimes it could be overwhelming
Yeah.
because of someone suffering from mental health issues. And they see a lot of people, they tend not to maybe open the door, or they tend to be very guarded.
Okay.
But for the most part, we're well received. We do knock on a lot of doors that don't open,
Mm.
and unfortunately that does happen. But we continue to make as many attempts as we can. We try to make 3 attempts before we actually close a case.
Okay.
So we do make attempts, and we do different hourly, some an AM and a PM, and to try to vary the
Mhm.
times that we show up. And for the adolescents, a lot of times we do like an after school type thing, like after 3 o'clock
Mhm.
would be better to get to an adolescent, or a weekend. So we try to gauge it that way, and for most cases, they know we're coming. We're not a surprise.
Okay.
So that's good. Except for the 98, be a surprise on it.
Okay. So now, how does Safety Net support families who maybe are navigating these mental health challenges?
We're not only supporting the adolescent, like
Mhm.
we do work, with their family members as well.
Yeah.
Depending on circumstances, we want to have them. Sometimes I have to contact a parent or guardian and let them know, hey, we made this appointment. Just so they follow up. But I mean, a lot of it is working, 1-to-1 with the actual adolescent. We want
Mhm.
them to speak for themselves and handle things on their own at some point.
Mhm.
If they're underage and a minor, then we're definitely going to work more closely with the family on them.
Yeah.
We have to get their consent on certain things. We want to make sure they, not only the individual we're working with knows us, but their family also, can develop a relationship with us.
Mhm.
I've had certain cases where I would have parents that are calling or messaging me, saying like, "Hey, I've seen this at home. Can you maybe work on this or discuss this or something like that?" So we try to be as inclusive with the whole family as
Mhm.
possible.
That's good. Yeah. Can you talk maybe about the types of services that are offered, like advocacy, peer support, parenting skills training?
Pretty much anything across the board. I mean,
Mhm.
advocacy is like our number one goal. We are
Yeah.
there for them to push them to being more of an independent adult. But
Mhm.
services wise, I've already mentioned we can obtain documentations for them. We can go with them to appointments. We support them if they're, putting in applications for supportive housing or benefits or things like that. We have a lot of clients that have gotten supportive housing and
Yeah.
now they have an apartment. We'll actually help them with, furnishing it with just some basic
Wow.
domestic needs,
Mhm.
just to get them started. Anything across the board that if somebody comes to us and says, hey, I need help with this, I've helped, what else? I've helped them with getting their driver's license and like permits and things like that.
Wow.
If they're looking to get into some sort of training program, we can help support them with that. There's a lot of things that, because of the way the program is written up, we can help them with funding, certain things. There's other outside programs that we will use from time to time, but like we can help them firsthand,
Mhm.
really anything they need.
Yeah.
If they come to us, I'll have, a client will ask me, hey, I need help with this. A lot of times I'll go to my supervisor and say, is this something that we can do? And it usually ends up being something we can do.
Mhm.
I recently found out, we have some clients that might, experience homelessness. We can help them, with like paying for a hotel or something like that. So there's a lot of leeway within, the grant that we can.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. With the, mobile outreach, what role would you say trauma-informed care play in the approach, taken by your teams?
Well, when we work with someone in a trauma situation, the team is made up of a clinician, and we try to work with them on how they're doing with their trauma and get them involved with a program. Usually the doctor set up a program at 1130 South Avenue where there's multiple areas, and there are different clinics in there that could help the client with what they're going through, or even just try to get them to focus on what they need for their well-being,
Mhm.
but also always keeping the trauma something that's not minor.
Yeah.
It's really part of the what's going on. So
Okay.
we try to highlight it, but but really get them to do the self-care and what they need to do to hopefully get through it and to be able to live with it, because it's not, you can't change it. That's the one thing we've realized is not changing it.
Yeah.
How do we get around?
Do you deal with trauma issues at all?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to trauma-informed care, it's more, we're not asking what's wrong. We're asking what happened. Like we're going to acknowledge the trauma and we're going to work with it, based on the circumstances. Everybody needs a different approach to it, but when they feel like they're being seen and being heard, that can make a big difference when we're trying to establish a relationship with them. As a peer advocate, I'm not clinical or anything like that. So I can just speak to them, on a different level sometimes, talk with them and acknowledge, what they've gone through makes a difference. And, when I'm not like, writing notes and, sort of like putting it in your medical records, sometimes you will get a different conversation than maybe a doctor or the therapist
Oh,
might
of
get.
course. The peer-to-peer support is always, a good way to resonate. How does the transition to independence process model guide your work with clients?
It's strength-based approach, right? We're gonna set goals based on their skills and where they're at. We're not going to try and push them beyond what they might be capable at that time. You set SMART goals.
Okay.
Specific, measurable, attainable. But yeah, that's really it. We're gonna like meet them where they're at, whatever they're coming from, and we're gonna work with them to develop those skills further. Maybe introduce them to developing new skills that might benefit them down the road. Things like that. But we're gonna focus on what they do best at the time and use that.
So does that kind of program, do you do short and long-term goals?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Like we, depending on circumstances, we might need to just work on something this week. I just need you to, follow through with whatever needs to be done. And then, down the road, we will, come to, as long as we're able to hit certain milestones, then we'll work on the long-term goal. Because I'll have clients, they come in and they're like, oh, I want a car, I want a house, I want the high-paying job and stuff like that. And it's
Not
like,
gonna
okay,
happen overnight.
so let's start with, getting you a license, or let's start with, getting you employed somewhere.
Yeah.
And then we can work on, the bigger goals, sort of thing.
Got it. Okay. So how do life coaches and peer advocates support participants in these programs?
The life coach, life coach and peer advocate, we basically support in the same way. I just have the added, if there's some, something at risk for substance abuse.
Got it.
But, I work side by side with all the life coaches. We all pretty much follow the same model when it comes to supporting adolescents in whatever they need.
The same thing on the mobile team. We go out. For the most part, I'm trying to direct them if they're interested. Because one of the things I find is you can't make someone, find recovery. There has to be some sort of an interest, sort of they're at their bottom of. But I carry material with me for different programs within Staten Island rehab centers and things of that nature. So if they're interested, I can help them in that way. For the most part, on the mobile team, what we're trying to do is get them hooked up with the RUMC services, and in there they might get those other. Our goal is really, hey, you were in the rehab, you were in the ER, that you were sent home, they gave you some medicine. Are you planning on making your appointment? And if they do all of those, they hit all those things, and it's great. And then what happens on the back end, if they don't make the appointment, we get another referrals, and we'll try to reach out again. And it's again, the goal is to always keep the patient out of the hospital.
Yeah.
Out of the ER, I should say.
Okay. So when you do have a patient, say, who's receptive to your care, how frequently do you continue to see them after the initial visit?
I leave it up to them. I give them my number. I've taken one patient physically. I've taken them to a meeting.
Wow.
Where I picked them up at home and brought them. They're not very receptive to it, but they've taken my information. Okay. And I always leave a phone number and my name, and I tell them if you want to go further, I'm available.
Okay.
And we're available 24/7. And our number is I give them the number to our team. So it's a 24/7. So if anybody gets a call for Dave Ferrer,
Yeah.
I usually get a message on.
Oh, okay.
So
Can you talk about a typical care plan for youth in, Safety Net?
I mean, as far as like a quote unquote care plan, when you have the youth achieving independence side, like I said, a lot of those clients are Access One diagnosis, but we're mainly focused on the education,
Hmm.
employment, vocational skills, and things like
Okay.
that. With the South Shore Safety Net side, because I have that added caveat of potential for substance abuse, like
Hmm.
that might need to be a more of a primary focus before we start really looking into trying to find a job or something like that. We might need to work on like harm reduction if somebody is a little bit more of a heavy user in a certain substance or
Hmm.
something like that. So, we'll take whatever the therapists or the doctors are putting, like in their notes.
Okay.
We take copies of their health assessments and things like that. And we keep that in mind when we're working with clients. Everybody kind of has a different approach when it comes to each individual client. But yeah, mine a little more focus on making sure that the substance abuse doesn't become a bigger problem in
Yeah.
that sense.
So since you've started, do both of you see, an uptick in the substance abuse with all the opioids on the island and the fentanyl, and do you notice there's an increase?
Most of the clients pretty much they come to us. They're not heavy users. If they are, then they really need a higher level of care. Then they would be referred to like the Center for Young Adults or Silverstein Clinic or something like that.
Okay.
If they come to us, they might be smoking marijuana or drinking alcohol or something like that.
Hmm.
We just try to make sure that it doesn't become a more serious problem. Personally, yes, I've seen the uptick more in not just like opioid use, but now you see fentanyl being put into everything. A lot of like designer drugs coming in with like just various chemicals. Put all these chemicals together to try
Oh,
and
yeah.
make whatever, and then these adolescents have no idea really what they're
Hmm.
taking.
It's scary.
Yeah,
No, and I heard that even recently that they detected the fentanyl in some of the vapes. It's just, 'cause vaping is such a big issue on Staten Island, so it's really scary.
they're
Yeah.
finding it in the marijuana too,
yeah,
Hmm.
it's
which
really everywhere. And when we talk to adolescents, even adults,
Yeah.
and many of them are cannabis users, and you try to get them to go to the dispensary. You have to get it, do it at a dispensary. A lot of those local places are selling illegal substances all the time,
That are tainted.
and they're
Yeah.
all tainted. They could
Yeah.
be
Of
tainted.
course.
Error on the side of caution,
Mhm.
and
yeah, I mean, if they're going to use, you can't really, change them. So we
Mhm.
just encourage, if you're going to use safely, like
right,
test what it is, whatever it
right,
is you're
test the
doing.
water.
We have the fentanyl strips, we have the
You give
xylazine
those.
strips.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give those out, if they tell me that they're abusing whatever substances, just,
Hmm.
try and be as safe as possible, whenever it is. Just be careful, like who and where you're, getting whatever it is.
And on the mobile side, I mean, a large portion of it is more mental health
Yeah.
than substance drug use. But they do closely, a schizophrenic using marijuana is really not a good thing.
No.
But that's pretty prevalent. You know, just try to encourage them that if you're doing it, we really don't want you to do it. But if you're doing it, get it from a dispensary.
Okay. Can you maybe speak on how you support individuals and families after the immediate crisis is over?
From a mobile standpoint, there's really no touch point back.
Okay.
It's the crisis and then the follow up to them being released from the ER,
Hmm.
unless we get a referral to come back and see.
Okay.
But every time when we go, we also give them a reference letter with our phone number on it, with the 988 number, and tell them if you need to talk to us or you need to call us, please call us 718-818-6900. And we tell them to please give us a call and set you up for a mobile visit.
Hmm.
And if it's critical, call 988. There are therapists, people online. I don't know if they're therapists, but people online that you can talk to. And if it's not critical, they're not going to request us to come out.
Hmm.
If it's just something they can talk you through, they'll talk you through. Hopefully, you'll go to sleep that night, and the next day you'll be in the day.
Okay, great.
That's the mobile crisis.
Mobile crisis. Okay. So we are actually going to wrap things up and we're going to continue this in our next episode. So I would like to thank you both for joining me today. And, for our listeners, if you know someone who is struggling, whether it's with mental health, substance abuse, or just the overwhelming pressure of growing up, know that you are not alone. And help is available. It just starts with a simple conversation. David and Anthony, I would like to thank you both for sharing your stories and giving us such a powerful look into the work that you're doing. It's clear that programs like Mobile Crisis Outreach and Safety Net aren't just services, that they're truly lifelines. So the fact that both of you are, bringing this lived experience and genuine desire to help is what's, helping to make this impact last so long. So to learn more about the programs that we discussed today, including how to access services or to make a referral, you can visit rumcsi.org and search for behavioral health services. You can call 718-818-5057 or 718-818-6900 to speak directly with someone from the team. If this episode resonated with you, we invite you to share it with your friends, families, or anyone in your community who could use a little hope and maybe a little help. So thank you for tuning into RUMC Connections. Until next time, I'm Meredith Gaskins, reminding you that healing starts with connection.